Hi, and welcome back to Ask Dr. B. So today I get to answer another viewer question. This one is a video. It's a very special question from someone else near and dear to me. This from my sister-in-law, Rebecca. So I'm going to pause here and let you watch the video, and then I'll do my best to give you a good answer.
Hi, Dr. B. This is your sister-in-law, Rebecca. Okay, so I have a question for you. Retiring. We're looking at retiring in a couple of years, and when my husband brought it up, your brother, my first thought was, he's telling me it's time to die. I don't know what to do with retirement. I love my job, but yeah, I want to spend more time with him before we get too old to enjoy it, and I want to spend more time with our grandchildren. What do you say to someone who's looking at retiring? What can it be? Thanks, Dr. B.
So thank you, Rebecca, for sending in that video question. It's actually sort of a conceptual question. She's really wondering about retirement, how to think about it, how to manage it, how to thrive through it and beyond. I think this is a really important question for all of us to ponder, no matter what our age. But obviously, for some of us, as we're in that frame of mind or in that time of life, it's just a great question. So first of all, retirement. I think that for a lot of people, it's not a positive concept. And I think that we need to look at that. It may seem great, the concept when you're younger. Wow, at some point I'll be able to retire. What does that mean? I won't have to work so hard. I'll be able to spend time doing what I want to do. I'll be able to travel, spend time with my family, whatever sort of vision that may conjure for you when you're younger. But as you actually get closer to the time to contemplate retirement, it may take on a different meaning or different meanings. And several things have changed over the decades. We live longer. So what does it mean to retire? Retire from what? Retire from work, retire from being productive, retire from my usual activities. How do we think about what retirement means? And for some people, this brings up a lot of, as you heard in Rebecca's question, a lot of these, thoughts about, well, wait a minute, what am I going to do when I retire? Am I going to have enough to do? Am I going to be healthy enough to enjoy this next chapter of my life? Do I have enough money to retire? Do I want to retire? Do I want to stop working? What if I don't have hobbies or activities that I want to spend, every day doing? And what if my partner and I are on different schedules? What if I'm retiring and that the other person is not? Or what if they're retiring and I'm not? And so this notion of what does it mean to retire? And Rebecca also shared, which I think is really poignant and really true for a lot of people. It makes them think about their own mortality, and that retirement is sort of the last stage of life before we die. And I don't want to minimize that, because I do think, we live life really sort of thinking about the next thing we're going to achieve and the next and the next and the next. And we don't often give a whole lot of thought to, the end of our life. And I think there are all kinds of reasons why we're not comfortable thinking about that. But I think it's important to think about what this time of life, meaning after you stop the career you're in now and engage in different activities or fewer activities. And we'll talk more about that in the second part. This is a 2-part series. And I'll talk more about that in terms of thriving. But because we live longer than our life expectancy is longer, and we're often, can lead very long lives after, quote, the beginning of retirement, this next chapter could be a very long chapter. And there's no reason for it not to be a fulfilling time of life where we're learning new things, we're tackling new challenges. We do have to accept limitations in at this point in our life that may be a result of, physical changes or physical limitations. But the truth is, there are limitations in life all the way along. I think one thing that complicates this time too, especially for people now, is that, ours is a very, especially Western society, very youth oriented society. We celebrate our youth. We see youth as we all want to be young and stay beautiful, and that youth is beauty, and all of these things that add to a sense of challenge for some people as they get ready to, again, leave that career or leave working as hard as you used to, or whatever retirement actually means. We don't have the pensions and the ceremonies that used to be very commonplace when my father was retiring. I remember the way that was celebrated and recognized at the company that he'd been with for years and years. It's different now. But whatever that demarcation is, it's important for each of us to really face the challenge, face this next developmental stage of our lives so that we can thrive. So what does that mean, these developmental stages? Each stage of life has them. We just, we do mark them, and we do notice them, and we do address them. So again, as you'll hear me talk more about in the second video of this, the way we face this one is the way we faced other ones in terms of using strategies, techniques, what works for us. But this phase has for a lot of people, this developmental phase, the developmental stage has some, again, these kinds of negative associations with it. It's not retirement. It's sort of like the beginning of dying. And in fact, the data tells us that people who do not remain active after they, quote unquote, retire, they are more likely to, struggle with health issues and men in particular, historically, if they don't find something else to do, channel that energy and that sense of identity. That's another big thing. For a lot of people, retirement creates a real identity challenge because I've worked my whole life. This is who I am. It's not just what I do. It's who I am. I think this is somewhat stereotypic, but it's, I think, still true, at least for this current generation, that women have often had multiple roles that they valued. Not society hasn't necessarily always valued them, but your role of mother, and as well as whatever I do in my career. And men, it's been, I think, less the case that they themselves, at least in terms of standards for success and achievement, that they had that same view, and I would say benefit, to see themselves as not just whatever their identity was as their job or their career, but also as parent. And I hope that over time we continue to evolve because we are all many things. We are not just whatever our career is. It's one piece of us, but it is not the only piece of us. Okay, so each developmental phase, we have challenges. When we're kids, our challenge is to learn things and to master things. And then, we go off to college and that young adulthood, it's the time to, identify your career and choose a career path and develop the skills that you need. And then, there's another developmental stage where it's about often, deciding whether or not you want to have a family, whether or not you want a partner. What does that look like? The building, the acquiring. And then you start to, downsize in life or head toward that time where you're going to step away. And then there are challenges about that, timing and when and what do you want to do. So I want to underscore that every chapter of life has challenges, has opportunities, has rewards. It's just finding them and embracing them. So again, more on that in the next video. I want to talk a little bit about, there was a it's funny, he wasn't trained as a psychologist, but he's known as a psychologist. This is Eric Erikson, who was born around the turn of the century, and he lived a very old age. So I think he lived to his 90s, I believe. So he certainly had a chance of reflecting on his own theory. And he really created this notion of stages of life, and that there are challenges in each stage. And I always thought when I was studying psychology, I always really liked his notion of these stages, and not that they're all perfect or that, there's robust evidence for every single thing he said, but it was a thoughtful way to think about these stages. And this final stage of life he referred to as integrity versus despair. And I thought that was really interesting. This is a time where our challenge is, do we go through this last sort of part of our life with a sense of integrity, a sense of acceptance, a sense of wholeness about ourselves, lack of regret. That doesn't mean we don't have any, but do we have a sense of success in whatever way we define that, feeling of some wisdom? This is where I wish our society valued age in some ways that I think it really undervalues. I know in my own life that, sure, there are things that I would like to, have again about being younger. I could physically do things then that I probably wouldn't do now. But I like so many things about this time of life. I like the sort of solid sense of myself. And I do feel like I have some wisdom. I hope I keep developing more, but that sense of wisdom, are there things that I've learned, things that I can share, things that I understand now that are different than when I was younger? And do I value those things? So that sense of acceptance and wisdom, that's a sense of feeling that what Erikson referred to as integrity, about my life, versus a sense of despair. Am I bitter? Do I regret more than I don't? Do I ruminate over, real or imagined mistakes? Do I focus on what I didn't achieve? And do I focus on a sense of failure? Do I feel depressed and uninterested in the life around me now? Is it all feel like everything good is behind me and I have nothing to live for? Is there a sense of hopelessness? And so, he really talked about this challenge that we have to whatever our life has been. And no one's life is without pain or loss or challenge or struggle or suffering. But can we look back and find things that we feel good about, things that we've learned, things that we've done, things that we've given, things that we've achieved, and continue to look forward? What else can I learn? What else can I achieve? Some of that's more me than him, but it's that notion of not feeling like life is over at this stage of life, but rather is it this next chapter where it's a time of reflection, and that we get to reflect. We get to do that at this time of life, as opposed to, juggling and taking care of all the responsibilities and all the obligations. And this time of transition into whatever retirement looks like for you, and we'll again talk a little bit more about that in the future, because there is no one, or in this next video, there is no one perfect model. But it's not a constant state, nor is any phase of life, and that shouldn't floor you or surprise you. There may be days when you really are feeling great about being done with your career, or the career that you were driven, and it was hard charging, and maybe you're really enjoying what you're doing now. But other days you may feel lonely for some of the work you did, or the excitement, or the colleagues. Obviously, it's more challenging if the partner that you lived most of your life with has passed away, and you're alone or feeling lonely. So there are challenges, and it's not a constant state, but we can strive toward this sense of integrity. Before I close this video, I want to focus a little bit on how do you know if you're not doing so well and could use some extra support. during this time. And again, I'm talking about, the transition and beyond. And like in all phases of life, challenges may come where then you may have been doing fine and enjoying and thriving. And then something happens. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one or a friend. Maybe it's some other limitation. And then it's important to take note of how you're doing emotionally and make sure that you're getting the help and support that you deserve. So as you've probably heard me say before, there are certain things to pay attention to. Our basic functioning. Am I sleeping? Sleeping changes as you get older. So pay attention to that. And so don't expect the way that you slept before to be the same as during this time of life. But if you're not sleeping well at all and you're not getting rest at all, so pay attention to your sleeping, your eating, your activity level. That changes too, but it's still important to be active. And there are norms for people in their 65 and older, what we want to continue to do to be active to keep our bodies healthy. Our mood, how is our mood? Are we depressed? Do we feel down? Do we feel heavy? Do we feel uninterested? More times than not. There's a period of transition. So if this is the first couple of weeks after, quote unquote, leaving, retirement, leaving your full-time job, we would expect some turbulence. But if it goes on for more than, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and you're not feeling like yourself, that's an indication. Are you worrying excessively? And there really isn't any threat to your system. You have enough funds, your health is good. Then that needs to be something that we take a look at with a professional or trusted either healthcare professional, mental health care professional, perhaps a clergy member to get a sense of what's going on. So worrying, feeling down, feeling hopeless, and your physical health. That's that affects our well-being, our sense of emotional well-being, but our sense of emotional well-being also affects our physical health. So they all work together, good diet, activity, sleep, relationships. Am I maintaining relationships? Am I not? Am I isolating? Am I really, letting my world get smaller and smaller? Am I not asking for help with things that I should? Pay attention to all of those dimensions. I know it's challenging, but that's why I'm doing these videos. You can always come back and watch again. And if you're concerned about yourself, or concerned about someone you love who's going through this phase, and you see these things, that really is a time to seek help and support from a professional, from family, from friends. Get that additional support that you need and deserve. So in the next video about this topic, I'm going to talk about how can we thrive? What can we do to make sure that this time of life is rich and enjoyable, and that we squeeze the most out of it that we can. Thank you, Rebecca, for this great question that stimulated all of these thoughts. And thank you all for watching. Take care.